Jumpin' In on Manx Radio.
With Howard and Chris Kane.
Hello.
Good evening.
And welcome. Yes, here we go again at 9 o'clock on a Saturday evening, jumping in, myself, H and Chris, with the best in modern and contemporary jazz, of course.
Yes, welcome along to this week's Jumpin' In. Can you believe it? The summer holidays are here. Yes, much like what seems to be the rest of the year, the kids are off school again for the next 6 weeks. The only difference being there's no chance of getting them to work this time. Perhaps no change there either. And two new words have come to prominence in the language, staycation and holistay. In case you're unsure, they both mean the same thing. You're not going anywhere, but you're still spending as if you were on holiday. Good news being, you won't be worrying about missing your weekly dose of some of the best jazz around. So what's been on your postcode home this week, H?
OK, well, we have some music from the early 21st century, courtesy of Bobby Previtt and Friends. The latest from Art Blakey, I say latest, 1960s, but it's brand new at the same time. We're just cooling with him, and it's Time, Please, with Jakob Bro.
And from me, well, gentle, vicious, dreaming, bursting, and to start with, fat. Here's 100 Parks. Terrific stuff indeed. That was 100 Parks from Glasgow's answer to Snarky Puppy Fat Suit. A bit unfair perhaps, as there's definite snarky influences. The Fats are very much their own band, with a cast ranging from a positively wee 10 members all the way up to a studio band of round about 30. And this latest release was done under lockdown conditions. They're winners of many awards, with their music encompassing jazz, rock, funk and even traditional Scottish folk. And the latest release, Strand, is a 3-track EP only available on Bandcamp.
Yeah, good stuff indeed. Now, stuff being unearthed from the vaults, not been uncommon of late. Bill Evans, obviously, there's been several of those coming out on Resonance, I think. They've all been great as well. Recording quality's gone up and down a little bit, but generally very good indeed. And, of course, John Coltrane of late. A couple of classics from him. Blue Will was the last one, which has been unearthed. And I really enjoyed both of those, actually. The New Directions one as well, and particularly good. Now, Art Blakey, Just Coolin'. Blakey and the Jazz Messengers in that classic jazz year, 1959, March the 8th to be exact. Lee Morgan, Hank Mobley, Bobby Timmons, Jamie Merritt. What a lineup they were. This was recorded in the Rudy Van Gelder studio in 1959. They went in and recorded this work there. Pretty much the only stuff. The results sat in the vaults then for 60 years, superseded by 2 albums recorded at Birdland a month later and released as Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers at the Jazz Corner of the World. Blue Note had got great success with multi-volume location recordings, which they'd done A Night in Birdland, of course, in 1954, the Jazz Messengers at the Café Bohemia the following year, and the label might also have been aware of the live European recordings that had been appearing with the extended version of the band's previously recorded hits. So it's great. 2020, a mere 60 years later, to find Morgan, Mobley and Timmons in their prime, and all pretty much up-tempo ones as well, as you might well expect. Here's a one by Hank himself, Hip Sippy Blues. Marvellous. 1959, just Coolin, Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, just released a mere 60 years after it was recorded. It's been sitting in the vaults. I think Blue Note decided the live ones were selling better, so this edition of the Messengers, as they recorded their output, as it were, marking their progress in the studio, has sat there for a long time. Hip sippy blues, that was. Blakey, a meat and potatoes shuffled groove, as he says. The composer leaping out, that's Hank Mobley, of an ensemble figure that resurfaces as Timmins concludes his solo. Can't disagree with that. Wonderful stuff, well worth checking out. Art Blakey, of course, at the drums, Lee Morgan trumpet, Hank Mobley tenor, Bobby Timmins piano, Jamie Merritt bass, Art Blakey at the drums. All gone now. We're debating where the profits might go. Jamie Merritt, I noticed, only died a couple of months ago. We went to show, I knew all the others pretty much long gone. Jamie himself, the bass player there, only passed away in April of this year. So not long gone, but I'm afraid all of them now gone on that recording. But well worth checking out on Blue Note, of course. Just Coolin.
And you can't go far wrong with any of the entries by the Jazz Messengers, no matter which version of the band it is. Now, a new voice on the sax for me, hailing from Fresno, California, is Tim Shaghoyan, and his debut CD, Gentle Beacons, came out in March of this year. Unfortunately, the supporting tour had to be put on hold due to COVID-19, but I think, however, the music speaks for itself. Here's Old Haven in the Waves.
Hi, this is Seamus Blake. You're listening to Jumpin' In on Manx Radio.
Yeah, I'm liking that one, courtesy of Lee Rare Noise Records. Music from the early 21st century. Jamie Saft, who we've featured off and on, the keyboard player, possessed of the most fantastic beard, it has to be said. 50% of the man is beard, as far as I can see. Bobby Previtt, we saw many years ago at a jazz festival playing drums, but still playing nicely there. Nils Klein as well. So Jamie on Hammond organ, Fender Rhodes, and your favourite Mini Moog. Nils Klein electric guitar and effects, and Bobby Previtt on drums. Before that?
Mini Moog, if you please.
Moog. Oh,
yes,
right, right.
Before that, we had A Haven in the Waves, taken from the debut album from sax player Tim Shagoyan and his California-based quintet with guitarist Chris Jansen, pianist Kevin Person Jr., bassist Richard Giddens, and drummer Antonio Montañez, joining Shagoyan on the sax, of course. Tim says he took his inspiration from the beauty of human connection and the emotional impact of loss. Writing the music helped him deal with personal issues, and the songs guided him forward like gentle beacons. Very philosophical. Now, a trumpeter I have followed from the beginning of his career, and I have to admit it, the first time I bought an album was by mistake because of his namesake, bass-playing countryman, is Avishai Cohen. After studying Berklee College of Music and building a successful following there, 6 years with the SF Jazz Collective and great albums such as After the Rain, particularly good with Lionel Lueke, he's now returned home to Israel and formed a group with musical friends from some 20 years earlier. And this is the result. Here's Honey Fountain. Taken from his 10th album as leader, that was Honey Fountain, the opener on Big Vicious by trumpeter Avishai Cohen. Mixing elements of hip-hop, rock and electronica, it perhaps brings a slightly harder edge to the sound than his previous two ECM releases, but the band was formed 6 years ago after Cohen returned home to Israel with old schoolmates Uzi Ramirez on guitar, Jonathan Halbalak on bass, and additional guitar and two drummers, Aviv Cohen and Ziv Ravitiz, with the leader on trumpet, electronics and synthesizer.
Yeah, very nice stuff. I enjoyed that one. Might have a bit more ECM coming up if we can squeeze it in. You're listening to Jumpin In, of course, with Chris and myself, H. And here's a man we haven't heard from a while. I don't know. Obviously, no one's been touring much of late. Let's hope things improve at some stage. We did see him at the London Jazz Festival quite a few years ago. I was thinking around about the time of this album, Morton's Foot. I'm talking about Rabbi Abu Khalil, the oud player who plays a mixture, I suppose, of its jazz, its folk, its world music. It's almost country in places, it's classical in places, a real mixed bag. This is one of my favourites of Morton's Foot from 2003. It might have been a couple of years after that when we saw him, but who knows? I lose track of the time. Rabbi on oud, in this case he's got the great Jared Cagwin on drums and frame drums, Gabriel Mirabassi on clarinet, and check out the throat singing as well of Gavino Murgia. And this is a happy little number called Lobotomy Mi Baby Lou. Wonderfully unclassifiable music. Rabbi Abu Khalil on oud there with Gabriele Mirabassi clarinet, the accordion of Luciano Biondini, Michel Goddard on tuba, the great throat singing of Gavino Murgia, I love that, Jared Cagwin on drums, Walter Quintus doing the engineering for them, and they like to list it rather like EST used to as well, and that's from a 2003 on Enja Records. Check out any of Rabbi's output, you'll never be disappointed, it'll always be different.
Marvellous stuff, and it's very, very descriptive music. You can see yourself with the tent flaps flapping in the wind and the girls dancing in the middle and the fine feast being laid out on the table. It puts you in mind of being in some kind of Arab oasis. Now, another trumpeter, this time starting out with his quintet's first recording. Here's Ascension en le Caverne.
Hi there, this is John Surman and you're listening to Jumpin In on Manx Radio.
Great dreamscape that, isn't it? Jakob Bro from the album Time. The late, great Lee Konitz just passed away, of course, with, unfortunately, complications due to COVID only a few weeks ago. Thomas Morgan, the understated bass player of the moment on the bass, and Bill Frisell with his trademark guitar on the Loveland Records. I think it's his own record label. He did that one, Balladeering, and one other, which all have a similar dreamscapey sort of background to it. Really nice. Not one for the car, but for a late night and a glass of something nice, as we say. Lovely.
And before that, perhaps, taking a more straight-ahead hard bop approach was Pepe Zaragoza 5-Tet with Ascension a la Cavana, taken from his 2017 release La Plaza dels Somnis. Pepe on trumpet, Joan Saldana on sax, Tony Saigi on piano, Michael Sinner on bass, and Iago Fernandez on the drums. Well, once again, time's against us. We can consider ourselves fortunate to be COVID-free on the island, while many others are still facing severe restrictions. However, as with all adversity, it's what you make of it that counts, and our old friend John Surman, whilst residing in Oslo, continued to have musical conversations with his son Ben, residing in upstate New York, and the files they shared and Ben produced resulted in this album, Oceanic Rifts. We'll leave you with Wave Theory.